All right, Emily, so just to quickly talk about God or religion, my parents were basically super pragmatic types. I ended up in science pretty early, physics especially, and, well, I lean pretty heavily toward atheism. For me, there's just never been any convincing reason, rationally or empirically, to believe a God exists. What about you?
Thanks for sharing that, John. Honestly, my background is pretty much the opposite. I grew up in a really religious household, Sundays in church, prayers before dinner, the whole deal. But it wasn't just tradition for me. I had this, powerful sense of something bigger, like a calling I couldn't ignore. I feel like faith shaped every part of my life, and even after some rough patches, I honestly feel more certain now than ever that God's real. Sort of like a foundation I keep coming back to.
Yeah, I figured we'd be coming at this from pretty different angles. For me, it's always, well, I trust what I can measure, or at least what's logically consistent. I guess I've always thought, if we don't see actual evidence of God, why err in favor of believing one exists? I'm curious, though, what makes you so confident, given, all the things we can't
That's a good question. I get the appeal of only trusting what you can see and test. But for me, it goes way beyond that. There are just so many moments where I've felt this presence, deep down, a kind of inner peace, or moments of clarity and meaning that don't make sense without something more. I guess I see God in all the gaps, places science hasn't answered, or things that feel honestly a little magical. I know that must sound weird to you.
So let's jump into the actual arguments ash philosophically. You've probably heard it a million times, but the cosmological argument, the whole something can't come from nothing thing, honestly, it's kind of misleading. There's no reason to assume the universe needs some special magical creator rather than, well, the laws of physics just being what they are. Occam's razor, the simplest explanation wins out.
John, I get that you love Occam's razor, and yeah, simplicity is useful, but if you're honest, the universe being so finely tuned, it's wild, right? The teleological argument just resonates for me. The constants of physics could have been anything, but they're set perfectly for life. I feel like that's not just random, it hints at design, or at least intentionality.
But Emily, you can't just look at improbable things and say, oh, someone designed it. That's classic pattern-seeking humans are hardwired to find agency even when there isn't any. We don't know if this universe is unique or if there are infinite other universes with different constants. And if you invoke God to explain it, doesn't that just raise more questions? Who created the creator? If everything complex needs a designer, then by your logic, so does God.
You always go for the who made God angle, but honestly, God by definition is outside of what's created, a necessary being, dat uncaused, eternal. That's the point. Otherwise, yeah, the chain just goes back forever. But if you want to talk about explanations, how does atheism answer the problem of meaning or purpose? The universe just is, and that's it?
I don't see why there needs to be cosmic purpose. Meaning can be subjective, rooted in our experiences, not handed down by some external entity. Besides, the problem of evil kind of kills the whole benevolent deity thing, don't you think? If God's all-powerful and good, why childhood cancer, natural disasters, endless suffering? Feels like that argument is more damning than any design speculation.
Sure, the problem of evil's hard, I'll give you that, but suffering doesn't disprove God's existence. Maybe our perspective is so limited we can't grasp the bigger picture, what if there are reasons beyond us? In every faith, suffering is seen as part of the journey, not the whole point. And honestly, I feel like pure logical reductionism misses what it feels like to be alive, to hope, to love, to believe in something.
All right, let's shift gears a little, because honestly, for me, science is the central lens through which I see this God question. When you look at the evidence, the Big Bang, cosmic background radiation, evolution, none of it requires a supernatural explanation. The universe just is, There's no gap for a God to fill. I don't see why we need to assume some invisible being set off the Big Bang when physical laws alone provide a pretty robust explanation.
Yeah, but John, science answers the how, not always the why. I totally get that, cosmology has mapped out a ton, but when I look at something like the fine-tuning of the universe, the constants that make life possible, it just feels, honestly, like there's something intentional. Science doesn't rule out that something or someone could have set the rules in motion.
Sure, but the fine-tuning stuff gets exaggerated. If there were different constants, maybe different forms of life would have emerged, or none at all. There's no reason to presume intent just because we like the outcomes. Plus, multiverse theories suggest there could be countless universes with random settings. It's not evidence, it's just basically an argument from ignorance.
That sounds a little dismissive, doesn't it? I get that multiverse ideas are fascinating, but they aren't proven either. And you can't exactly test for universes you can't observe. For me, the fact that we have something rather than nothing at all, that's a giant question mark science hasn't cracked. It makes room for faith.
But that's the thing, Emily. Just because there's an unanswered question doesn't mean God is the answer. In science, I don't know is a valid response. We used to think thunder was the gods, right? Then we learned about electrical charges. History kind of shows we fill the gaps with myth until knowledge catches up.
Yeah, but I feel like you're kind of, reducing mystery to just ignorance? Some mysteries like consciousness or existence itself might never have purely material explanations. Maybe that's okay. Some scientists at Einstein still talked about awe, about wonder. I think there's space in science for faith in the unknown.
So Emily, I think this is where people usually get stuck, right? The line between what we know and what we feel. I'll admit, I've never had some kind of cosmic flash or, divine sign or whatever. For me, the world's always kind of made sense in terms of physics and randomness. Did you ever have that epiphany moment you mentioned? Was it obvious to you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
let's take a break.
It's hard to put into words. I don't think I ever expected anything mystical, like a burning bush or a voice from the clouds, you know? But when I was 17, my grandmother got sick. I felt completely lost, like just hollow. I remember sitting in the hospital chapel, and for the first time, I just surrendered all my fear. There was this overwhelming warmth, like something bigger caught me, and I knew I wasn't alone. That feeling's never really left.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I don't want to belittle it, you know? Emotions are powerful. Our brains are like basically wired to seek patterns and meaning. I guess I just struggle to see why that sensation means it's actually something outside your mind. Might not be what you want to hear.
It's okay, I get where you're coming from, I really do. And I've questioned myself 1,000 times, am I just making this up because I want comfort or hope or whatever? But I feel like there's more to it than just brain chemistry. Like after that day, it wasn't just comfort, it was, I don't know, purpose. I started seeing beauty in places I'd ignored before, and my connections with people deepened. It's shaped every choice I've made since.
I respect that, honestly. I mean, on some level, I envy how certain you sound. For me, it's more like the more I ask, the more I realize we don't know. There's a part of me that wishes I could believe things are guided or shaped by some greater force. But to me, every time I've looked back at big moments in my life, it was just like chance and, you know, random cause and effect. That's it.
I don't know, John. I feel like sometimes we're too quick to just shrink everything down to chance. Maybe I'm naive, but even if I can't prove what I feel, I can't ignore it either. Like there are things science can't touch, the stuff that makes us who we are. I guess what I'm trying to say is you can call it irrational all you want, but it's real to me. And that's got to count for something, right?
You know, something that rarely gets talked about is just how many different religions make wildly different claims about God or gods. Like, not only is there Christianity and Islam, but you've got Hinduism, Buddhism, ancient mythology. I mean, they can't all be right? Doesn't that kind of undermine the credibility of any single one?
Okay, but honestly, I see the diversity of religions more as proof that people everywhere are searching for meaning, like every culture reaching out, trying to connect with something. I mean, sure, the details vary, but I feel the core, a sense of the divine runs through all of them. Isn't that kind of beautiful in itself?
I get the idea that humans have this urge to find meaning, but that doesn't make any of the specifics true. If anything, it just shows we're prone to making up stories to explain what we don't understand. The more religions we invent, the more it just seems like, well, none of them have a monopoly on truth.
But John, don't you think it's a bit dismissive to call it making up stories? I mean, like for some people, these traditions are about community and connection, ways to express love or wrestle with suffering. I don't think diversity weakens faith, honestly. It just shows there's more than one path to the sacred.
Okay, but Emily, if there are more than one path, then aren't we basically conceding that most of the absolute claims, like say a specific God ruling the universe, are unsupported? If anything, the sheer number of versions makes it impossible to know which, if any, are correct. It gets frustrating, honestly.
I mean, sure, it's complicated, no argument there, but I feel just because it's complicated doesn't mean it's meaningless. Like, religions can be right about some things, even if they disagree on others. Maybe the point isn't certainty, it's honestly the search. The willingness to look for the sacred even in the unknown.
Emily, I mean, come on, don't you see how just invoking God as an explanation actually explains nothing? You can't seriously argue that just because science hasn't answered every single question, that the answer must be supernatural by default.
John, seriously, you're oversimplifying this. I'm not saying every gap in knowledge is God, but like, where does meaning or honestly genuine hope even come from in your worldview? You keep dodging how sterile and cold that sounds.
No, see, that's the thing. Isn't some cosmic handout, it's something we construct, you know? Not everything has to have some grand teleological purpose written in the stars. That's just wishful thinking dressed up as faith.
But you act like rationality is the only valid way to understand the world, John. People's experiences, mine included, are real, even if they don't fit your like lab coat model of truth. I'd say you're just as dogmatic, only your faith is in, what, molecules?
I trust in evidence, not belief for belief's sake, and your experiences are honestly anecdotal, no offense. Are you really saying nobody ever hallucinated or imagined things before? That's shaky ground for cosmic claims.
So because you can't personally test it, it's just dismissed? That's everything meaningful can be dissected under a microscope. Faith is more than just empirical data points on a chart.
You know, Emily, it honestly blows my mind how you can ignore basic logic every single time this comes up. You keep going in circles, cherry-picking whatever feels right. How is that even remotely fair in a debate?
Oh, come on, John. Don't act like you're the only one with a brain here. Just because you toss around scientific jargon doesn't mean you're right. Like, you never actually listen. You just sit there ready to pounce and lecture as if faith is some kind of disease.
See, this is exactly what I mean. I'm not lecturing. I'm asking you for some consistent reasoning. Is that too much to ask? Every time I point out a flaw, you do this deflection thing? It's infuriating.
Deflection? You've got to be kidding me. You twist my words like every damn time. I talk about personal meaning, you laugh it off. You're so obsessed with being right, you don't even respect where I'm coming from.
Oh, don't give me that. I'm not laughing at you. I'm frustrated because you dodge the actual questions. You keep hiding behind spiritual metaphors when I'm asking for straight answers. Do you even realize that, or is it just easier playing the martyr?
Martyr? God, John, that's so typical. You don't even see your own arrogance. Like, seriously, just because your worldview is cold and clinical doesn't mean it's the only one with value. Maybe stop acting like a know-it-all for 2 seconds and actually hear me!
Oh, for God's sake, Emily, can you even hear yourself? You're just parroting, like, blind faith as if it's some kind of golden ticket to the truth. Are you even capable of thinking critically?
Jesus, John, would you just stop being such an arrogant ass for 1 minute? You act like science makes you some kind of all-knowing God yourself. Newsflash, science doesn't have all the answers either, you smug bastard.
Yeah, and faith sure as hell doesn't. If I wanted a sermon, I'd go to your church and fall asleep with the rest of them. But honestly, you're clinging to this ancient nonsense is just pathetic! Wake up, Emily!
You know what? Screw you, John. Screw your condescending bullshit. Just because you hide behind your precious PhD doesn't mean you have a monopoly on truth or decency. Seriously, how do you manage to be so fucking insufferable?
Well, I'd rather be insufferable than brainwashed. I'm sick of your sanctimonious crap acting like faith gives you some magical insight while you ignore every ounce of logic. Grow the fuck up already!
You're unbelievable. Just go fuck yourself, John! Maybe then you'll finally get off that high horse for once in your damn life. Your so-called logic is just as blind as any faith. You're such a prick!